Hello everyone, this is your City Council update for April 4th, 2010. Very long council meeting tonight. It was about 4 hours long, got home at about 11 o'clock. Ton of things that were on our agenda today, very full agenda, but really I'm just going to focus on 3 of the bigger items. And of course now our videos are online, so you can go back and see all the nitty-gritty details and all my inane ramblings if you just go to rochestermn.gov. 3 things I'm going to talk about. We voted on creating an ordinance to establish a community lighting utility, the street light fees. We also approved the law enforcement contract with their organized with their collective bargaining unit. I also talked about that, and finally we talked about one of the things that came up in the public hearing was actually about a project in Wojcik Park Neighborhood Association. Now there are a bunch of other things, but I'm just going to focus on these 3 things for this update. You've heard a lot about the street lighting utility fee, and one of the issues with that is it's been just really poorly communicated from the city. I've heard that, I see things like we're putting this fee in place to hire police officers, and really it's that's not really what's going on. Really, at the beginning of the year, we knew what our levy needed to be, and what we did is we actually reduced the levy by, I believe, $1.3 million at the time, understanding that we put this lighting utility in place during the year. Now, what it does is the idea was essentially drop the property taxes, increase this fee, and what it would do is it would give us some levity to get around different levy limits that were in place, but. I am not supportive of this fee at this time, and 3 principal reasons. First and foremost, this item was actually put on the consent agenda. What does that mean? That means you as an ordinary citizen can't come and give us peace of mind while we're discussing this. And what's interesting here is that the chamber did ask to speak, and we suspended the rules and let the chamber speak. But the thing is that this is a topic that the public should have been able to weigh in on. Instead, we put it on the consent agenda. And we put this on the consent agenda, the public doesn't get to weigh in. It's a tax increase on you, and you don't get the pleasure of actually getting up to stand up and say anything about it. So not something I was particularly proud of. Second thing I don't like about this is basically they're going to charge every residential, every homeowner the same amount. So in other words, if you have 40 feet of lit frontage, you're going to be paying the same amount as someone has 400 feet of lit frontage. Now, that would be the equivalent of you going to the gas station and you bike around, you do lots of walking, you drive a Prius, you don't need much gasoline, but you go to pay for the gas and they say, oh, it's $50. You say, well, why is it $50? I didn't get $50 worth of gas. And they say, well, it's $50 because everyone has to pay the same amount. You're like, well, that's kind of ridiculous. Well, that's what we're doing with our lighting utility. Everyone's going to pay the same amount despite whether or not you happen to live in a sprawled out area or a not sprawled out area. The reality is, if you live in a sprawled out area, the kind of development that you live in costs the city more money. As such, for street lighting, you should pay more money. That is not what we're doing. What we're doing is we're overcharging our very dense areas like Wojcik Park or East Side or Slattery, and we're significantly undercharging some of our wealthiest, most sprawled out areas like Foxcroft, Scenic Oaks, some of the areas like that. And it's really unfair to our citizens, and it's you're basically creating a new tax and you're disproportionately applying it to the poor and middle class people in the city. I do not agree with that. Third reason I oppose the utility fee is that we have a history of abusing utilities. Let's just take a look at the sewer utility, for example. Now, this utility is set up and the dollars should be dedicated to operate and maintain the streetlight utility. Well, with the sewer utility, we operate and maintain the streetlight utility, and we're giving $70 million over the next 18 years subsidy to developers. Now, I brought these numbers up before, and not a single person in the community, nor city staff, nor any other council member disputed the number that I put forward of, I think it was $68 million at the time. So we basically took an existing utility fee and then we're abusing it. So for these 3 reasons, I did not support this streetlight utility fee. Now this is only starting it out. It doesn't go into effect until September, so there'll still be discussion. And a few other council members expressed that, well, we'll take a look at possibly distributing this fee equally or more fairly. And I hope that happens, but the fact that I voted against that is a little bit of a statement that I don't think we're going to arrive at the right place when we make this decision. A second thing, we actually had a agreement in place with our law enforcement, and I think that we did something very foolish here. We're in the midst of a long-term crisis. We continue to lose more and more state funding. We're basically down to nothing in terms of LGA. We don't have a rainy day fund. In fact, we have something called budget reserves, which are actually lower than they're supposed to be, and we're potentially putting our bond rating at risk as a result of it. And basically what we agreed to do in these very difficult times, and times where we're actually hiring more police officers, is we authorized a 3% raise. Now, this is on top of some pretty some raises that have been going pretty generous for a long period of time now. And the reality is inflation is next to nothing right now, and we're pretty much broke right now. I mean, there's everyone seems to think that there's money floating out there for some of these different projects, but I think it's very disingenuous when we approve some of these. And the issue is not so much law enforcement. They're wonderful people. I said at the county meeting, we have some of the best law enforcement folks in the country. This isn't about them. What this is about the fiscal responsibility and our ability to make good decisions come the end of the year. I am very concerned at the way that we're going, the way that we're seeing LGA cuts for the state. We could be potentially headed towards a double-digit tax increase if we don't rein in some of the spending a little bit. And I think that this is one area where we just have to do it. The reality is, it's the city budget's not gone up. The city budget in 2010 is actually less than it was in 2009. The reality is, we are in a worse and worse financial situation. That's a direct statement of what's happened at the state level, and it continues to be a concern. Now, another thing is the 3% is delayed till the end of the year, but it's still going to compound. We potentially have a 6% increase in wages come the beginning of next year. And then instead of they eliminated steps, but they took the pay increase, which basically means it's kind of punishing the newer employees relative to the more senior employees, because the more senior employees have been through their step-ups, and the whereas the younger employees would be going through those steps. So it's actually something that benefits the officers that have been around longer than those that are newer to the force. And the third thing is we're actually furloughing. We're 26 hours of furlough per officer. Now, they said that they're going to do it in low volume times and everything, but tell me if there's not something really wrong about hiring 4 new police officers and then furloughing the equivalent of 1.5 police officers, which is about what it works out to be. I thought until I actually saw this sitting in my pamphlet last Friday that we weren't going to furlough officers, we weren't going to furlough public safety, but we are, and hopefully it's not something that affects the public safety, and they're talking about 1 hour at the end of a shift or something. But boy, I think that just sends the wrong message. Furloughs and pay increases in an environment like this, and I hate to be the guy screaming about the money in the background, but boy, it just seems like we're doing some really foolish things right now. Now, in terms of financial foolishness, this is not by means a $1.4 million bailout for Joe Weiss's Skyway, but it's still something that's pretty frustrating. Interesting story. A developer came up and actually said at the city council meeting that, well, I'm a developer, and I wouldn't, if I came here asking for a bailout, you wouldn't give me a bailout. I'm like, oh, you don't know how we operate around here. Actually, yeah, we actually have a history of doing that. You should come back when you need a bailout. And then last thing I'd like to bring up is we had it turned out to be a little bit more controversial than I thought it would be, but the Kutzke Park Neighborhood Association, they're talking about doing another fourplex like Weigel Place, and the reality is they're doing it in an area that's currently zoned R1, so they're going through a restricted development process. And I've been aware of this project for a long time, and I've been very supportive, but some neighbors did raise some very good points that I have to acknowledge, and I think that I don't think they're happy with the fact that I voted in support of this, but I do hope that they saw my thought process and realize that the things I say that are important to me are going to continue to be important to me, and not the least of which is the fact that there are a lot of beautiful single-family homes, and my goal is these beautiful single-family homes in Kutzke Park to save every one of them that can be saved. The reality is we were dealing with this one was a particularly a property that was not salvageable. And we are putting a gorgeous property in place of it. I think it's something that in the long run is truly going to benefit the neighborhood. I believe that Weigel Place definitely benefited the neighborhood. I think it's going to benefit the community as a whole. But it was not without controversy, so what I tried to do is I made sure I listened to every single person, and even though those opposing the project were a strong minority, I still gave them the same thought that I gave the majority. And the reality is I hope they understand the thought process with it, and I do appreciate them sharing their concerns. And I think that making sure that this entire neighborhood does not become a series of fourplexes does remain a goal of mine. So thanks for paying attention. We'll see you at the next meeting.